We are getting closer and closer to the next generation of jet. And while we are maybe considering, and I mean, you might be thinking that we're talking about 5th generation jets in War Thunder, I might as well tell you that it is not that yet. Although we will probably see eventually a F-35 or any 5th generation jet in the game, probably, right? An F-22 or something like that might come at some point. We have to think that the next gen that will come to the game, the next step up, will be the famous 4.5 generation, or even called the 4 Plus, or even 4 Plus Plus generation of jets. But what are those? I already did a video about some videos about them and the specific things that they do have, but I wanted to actually talk about on the standpoint of looking at War Thunder top tier right now and comparing it to what you might see in the future and what you can actually expect. What are the things that actually will make you see an aircraft that is a 4.5 and really have a clear picture that it is a much better jet than what we have. So what is a 4.5 generation? Well, the main idea behind this designation of a generation of jet is something obviously in between the 4th generations that we have in the game that started being produced in the 80s or even 70s, and the 5th generation thing between the most advanced things that we have right now in the Air Forces, like an F-35, F-22, etc. And also the older MiG-29s, F-16s, F-15s, stuff like that, even the F-14, right? So what are the actual things that they bring here? Well, the idea is that although the 5th generation jet was something that was, I mean, all of these terms and designations, they are kind of fluid, it depends on the military that it's using them, the magazine that is using them, or anything like that. We can have a consensus that the idea here is to use stuff that was used to produce 5th generation jets in a 4th generation kind of line of thinking of how a jet would look like, right? So having most of the stuff even, or at least some of the stuff that a 5th generation would have with some of the stuff that a 4th generation would have. The clear example, before we get to the specifics of every single thing that would a 4.5 generation have, is a 4th generation that was modernized. A MiG-29 or becoming a MiG-35, an Su-27 become an Su-35, an F-15 becoming an F-15 Silent Eagle or something like that, right? All of these would mean that the aircraft is becoming something else by just changing some systems internally of the aircraft. But also, we can have some types of aircraft that are completely new designs, like the Eurofighter and the Rafale, that are aircraft that have that idea of just being very modern and almost a 5th generation, but having here and there stuff that really brings not the age, because these are very modern aircraft, but the age on the technology side of things. Okay, so the clear example is having an Eurofighter that has 5th generation almost level of performance, but at first using a mechanically scanned array radar, right? That would be the idea, or not having any type of stealth, or having a little bit of type of stealth, but not like a full stealthy aircraft where a 5th generation would be considered, right? So these are the 4.5, 4 plus generation jets, aircraft that will be the step up of performance, bringing little things here and there to actually bring a 4th generation project or even a completely new project to a whole new level of performance without having to spend the money of building a 5th generation jet. That's the idea, right? So what are those upgrades that a 4th generation can have, or even what are the concepts that you will see in the new 4th generations that are from the get-go a new project that are a 4.5 generation? So the first thing that we need to talk about is the sensor capability of it. The idea is to have an advanced sensor integration using IRSTs, using the brand new radars, technologies, and all sorts of stuff like that, right? The main idea behind this is obviously integration with data link and everything with that, but mainly the technology of electronic scanned array radars. These are PESAs and AESAs. I'm not gonna get to the like tiny little bits of stuff that make an AESA or a PESA different from the mechanic scanned array radars that we have in the game right now. What I can say is that if you take Tornado F3, for example, and narrow down the search pattern of the normal radar that you have there, and you multiply that throughout the scan zone of 90 degrees, 120 degrees in front of you, this is what it would actually look like together with an instantaneous detection on the vertical parameters. So basically it means that the radar is not only having one emitter of radiation, it is having multiple ones spread out across the scan zone pattern, meaning that you can literally instantly or almost instantly detect any target that the radar antenna is pointing to, which means that you will have a much precise indication on where the targets are, and of course a much faster response to choosing targets and looking on where they are without having to wait for the whole scan to use. This would be the main thing. Of course, the powerfulness of the radar increases as well, increasing the range with electronics becoming more advanced and just becoming better overall in all parts of the system itself. It means that you can have a smaller radar, lighter radar that can do the same range as before as a bigger radar, or even more. So, or even you can push the limits, putting a massive AESA radar or PESA radar, especially PESA, right, in the case of the MiG-31, for example, to really push the limits on what humans can actually accomplish on a radar detection range, for example, and, you know, just use this radar to do anything that you have to do as an interceptor, right? You have to think that not only these radars would be instantaneously detecting anything, but it could also, depending on the case, in the case of the MiG-31 is something like they can do, you can divide apparently like a bunch of a part of the radar to hard lock a target and have 4 hard locks at the same time and fire 4 semi-active missiles at different 4 targets, right? So it's just a very advanced radar and much better than what we currently have in the game. That takes a lot of time and a lot of power to make it work, okay? This is the first thing that you will see. Although some of these 4.5 generations, they do have older radars. Like I said, the Eurofighter initially had mechanically scanned array radars. It is still a very advanced radar no matter what, and you know, it will be at least trying to get on par with the PESAs and AESAs of the world with a mechanical scanned array. But the majority of the 4.5s will have an AESA or a PESA. From Japan with its F2, to the Russians with the MiG-35, to the Americans with their upgrades to the F-15s. Everybody has this type of technology to be used in a radar. Here or in the future, it will be something that everybody will have, okay? The second thing is, of course, the super-maneuverability. But Matt, we already have super-maneuverability, you know, the aircraft that we have in the game are already up there. Yes, guys, that's the thing. The 4.5 generation is not that far from what we have in the game. You should expect something in the acceleration terms and turning capability, climbing, max speed, everything like that, to be on par with the stuff that we have right now. The only thing that will be kind of different is the ability of being great at everything. So before, in the 70s, in the 60s, we had an aircraft that was amazing at acceleration and top speed, but really bad at turning, for example. And you see in the 4th generations that this was something that was less and less common, right? With the 4.5, it will be even less, as you see from something that was added in the last patch. So if you wonder how an Eurofighter will be like, look at the J-10, guys. It will be very similar to that. An aircraft that has an Su-27 engine, so it has an incredible amount of power, but also with a delta design and a canard system. So it means that the aircraft can turn as well as a Block 10 F-16 and still maintain the power of any aircraft that you can think of. So it has everything combined into one aircraft, and this will become even more apparent when we see these aircraft. So remember, 4.5 generations, they're just evolution of a fourth generation concept, right? They are the types of aircraft that you will see being amazing at everything and not just good at everything, like an F-16A would be, you know, or a MiG-29A would be. They're good at everything, but they're great at some things. And you know, the 4.5 will try to bring that greatness on every single type of capability and system and performance capability that the aircraft has. Okay, so expect the levels of the J-10 onwards of performance on the Eurofighter, on the Rafale, on advanced MiG-29s, Su-27s, F-15s, F-16s, F-2s, whatever you want to add there, they will be amazing in the performing capacity, right? And then we have tiny little bits here and there that some aircraft have that are systems that came from fifth generation concepts, right? We can talk about the reduced radar cross-section that some aircraft started to introduce. The Rafale is mainly the main 4.5 generation that have that, right? It is much more stealthy than some of the other aircraft that you see out there, but it doesn't mean that it's a stealth aircraft like an F-22 or like something like that, right? So it's the concept that it's getting into the project more than just oh my god, it's a stealth aircraft, right? You can see that for example in later models of the J-10 or even the JF-17 with the divertless supersonic inlets, or even the carbon fiber composites that some of these aircraft can use in the future as well, right? So you will see these types of things being introduced in some of these aircraft becoming a little bit more stealthy, which means that will you see a stealth aircraft? No, you will still see them in the radar. The only thing is that they will be less apparent on the radar itself, right? So you will basically need to get closer to them to actually detect them. But remember, we are getting better radars as well. So at the same time that this type of technology gets better, the radars gets better as well, meaning that it's kind of, it levels it out, but of course stealth will play a part on that regard to some aircraft. Another thing that most of these aircraft will have is the multi-role capability. Obviously, we will already see these becoming more apparent in the later stages of the fourth generation jets that we have in the game, but this will become even more. Better pods, better radars, like most of them will have some form of air-to-ground radar to detect a lot of things, right? Of course, the pods becoming better with more zoom, with better thermal systems, with better systems overall to detect and engage targets from longer distances as well. So you will see those things here and there coming as well. But that's kind of it, guys. These are the things. See that it's not that big of a deal, actually. It's basically the evolution that we see ongoing right now. That's the thing that people don't understand. The fourth generation jets, third generations, 4.5s, they are just designations of humans trying to, incorporate everything in the language system, right? We need to be able to express and know what each and every one is talking about, and we need to try to, have classifications of stuff. That's why we have these names. But to be honest, it is basically an ongoing evolution of the technology, So what we can consider a 4.5 generation jet, it's pretty broad. The thing is that even Gaijin is technically considering that the J10 that we have right now, it is already a 4.5 generation, which I think it's kind of crazy, but technically you can say it is, right? Depending on the military or magazine or anything, depending on who's talking about, it's kind of something that they might consider as a 4.5 generation. So it's a very broad kind of consideration that you have to think about. So don't try to, oppress anybody or, just curse anybody because they're not considering what a tiny little difference of a jet can make it a 4 or 4.5 generation jet. What you have to know is that it is the evolution from what we already have. So think about the Gripen, think about the J-10, think about the MiG-29 SMT, think about all these aircraft, but with better everything. Little details here and there that make it up for a great, amazing aircraft that is on par of being one of the best things you ever saw, right? So even the initial 4.5 generations are not really on par with the later 4.5 generations. That's why some people call it the 4 plus generation. Clear example of this is the Gripen E, for example, which uses a much better radar than early Eurofighters, for example. And they are both technically 4.5 generation, or sometimes called a 4 plus and a 4 plus plus generation. That's why people divide it in these like categorizations, right? But just think that it is basically the flight level, the flight performance that we have right now, with little things here and there. A better radar, oh no, a little bit more capability on super-maneuverability, a little bit better air-to-ground capability, a little bit better of a Fox 3 missiles. Of course, with the advanced radars, you will see advanced missiles as well, the 120C and D, R-77s-1s, etc., etc. Better IR missiles, this is something that you probably will see, but it has nothing to do with the 4.5 generation of jets. It's just an aircraft that the type of missile that you will see the evolution. The A9Xs, IRIS-Ts, R-74Ms, and etc. Python 4s, Python 5s, all of these, you will see those. So it's going to be a progressive modernization of tiny things to make these aircraft to be amazing. And together, if you add them all together, it will make all of these aircraft like far in performance, far better than what we have in the game, at the same time being very similar. I know it's kind of contradictory, but you know what I mean, right? It's basically the same project, but with a better radar, a better missile, and then it becomes a whole bunch of little new things that add up to be a little big thing. A big difference from the old 4th generations, okay? But yeah, guys, I wanted to wrap it up. The objective of this video is to talk about what you can expect from this aircraft. When should you expect them? I already talked about these in other videos. Soon, but not that soon. I wouldn't expect any of these types of aircraft coming in this October patch that is coming, but December patch, for sure, I would wait for it and probably see something like that coming in the December patch. Okay, guys? But yeah, see you guys in the next one. Let me know in the comments what you think about the 4.5 generations. Are you excited for them? Do you hate them? Let me know in the comments, and I see you guys on the next one. So bye, subscribe, click the like button, and yeah, see ya.